Welcome to the 2023 Sea Grant Knauss Fellowship discussion on how to apply to the Knauss program. On this screen, we have our phone number, our email address, and our website. All three great ways to learn more about our program. The website has a lot of details about what we're talking about today. And then if you have additional questions, you can always give us a call or send us an email. So the Sea Grant mission is to enhance the practical use and conservation of coastal, marine, and Great Lakes resources to create a sustainable economy and environment. And how do we do this? We have a network of 34 university-based Sea Grant programs located across all the coastal states, including the Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, and Guam. Each one of those blue birds on the screen is one of our programs. So you can really see that we're in all of our coastal states, including some of our more inland states, like the Great Lakes. We also have a law center, which is the one located in northern Mississippi. So what is the Sea Grant Knauss Fellowship? The Sea Grant Knauss Fellowship provides a unique educational and professional experience to graduate students who have an interest in ocean, coastal, and Great Lakes resources and the national policy decisions affecting those resources. You can see here on the screen, this is a screenshot of the 2022 or 2021 class getting ready after their placement process with their host agencies. So the John A. Knauss Marine Policy Fellowship, we've supported close to 1,500 students over the last 40 years. We have fellows from 33 of our 34 programs. The only one missing is our Law Center because that is our newest program. But really the Knauss program has been launching careers that offer direct experience working in the executive and legislative branches on the latest issues in ocean and coastal management, fisheries, and research. So what happens if you get the award? You receive a placement in the Washington, D.C. area or the DMV in the legislative or executive branch for a period of 12 months. For the 2023 year, you're going to receive a salary of $66,500, and that does include health benefits. You're going to receive $5,000 for allowable expenses. So that's things like relocation, academic tuition, and academic and fellowship related travel expenses. You're going to receive $2,500 to support travel to the DC region for an in-person placement process. Depending on global situations, we may continue to do that virtually to be decided. And then also there's this $15,000 additional that your host office may be able to provide so that you can travel in representation of them. But again, that is not guaranteed to everybody. So there's three branches of the U.S. government. The Constitution defines that. We have the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. In this program, you're going to be working for either the legislative or the executive branch. So the legislative, those are the folks who make the laws. That's Congress, that's the Senate, that's the House of Representatives. So you may be working in one of those two houses. Then we have the executive branch. Those are the folks who actually carry out the laws. We're led by the president and the vice president and their cabinet members. So you might be working across the executive branch, and I'll get into a little bit more about the details of both of those in a second. So the executive branch. If you are placed as an executive fellow, there's many more executive fellows. We average about between 50 and 60 executive fellows. You're going to work across the executive branch of the government. Many of our host offices have had fellows in the past, and many of our hosts are actually former fellows, or you might be working with a former fellow in your office space. You may lead specific projects or serve more as a coordination and support role. Just depends on where your placement process takes you and the goals you're looking for. These are just an example of some of the organizations we work with. So we're not just based at NOAA, while many of our fellows do end up at NOAA. We have folks at the Fish and Wildlife Service, Environmental Protection Agency, Department of State, Marine Mammal Commission, Army Corps of Engineers, the Navy. So really all across the executive branch of the government. Pretty cool stuff. So on the other side, the legislative branch, there are usually between 15 and 20 of these fellows. Again, many of our host offices have hosted a fellow in the past. You're frequently going to be working with or for former fellows, and you're going to be more working on the hot topic in the office. It's not always ocean or Great Lakes related, but it always is environmentally touching the environmental space. You might end up in either the House of Representatives or in the U.S. Senate. You may be in a personal office or a committee. You may be working for the majority or minority offices. So really, we're all across the legislative branch, which is really exciting. So this is a general timeline of the Knauss Fellowship Program. We start recruiting, obviously we're recruiting now. We start that process in October with application packages due in February. In March, you're going to have an interview process, and you're also going to find out if you're submitted to the national competition. Then in April, the national level, we receive applications and review those for merit. We then have a pretty extensive review panel, and our finalists are selected in May. And then we let you know if you're a finalist in June. And then once you become a finalist, you're going to go through something called Placement Week. And then the fellowship begins in the following February. So this is a long process. It does take about a year in order to get into our program. For the 2023, here are our specific dates. The applications are due to your state program by February 18th at 5 p.m. local time. Do take note, so if you're out in Guam, your local time is very different than in DC. We have two very different 5 p.m. local times, so do take note of that. State Sea Grant programs are going to review your applications. All applications are due from the state program to me by April 1st. And then Placement Week, again, is in October or January, and then the fellowship begins on February 1st. So what makes you eligible to be a Knauss Fellow? Any student, regardless of citizenship, is eligible to submit to this opportunity if they fall into the following three categories. The student is enrolled in a degree in a graduate program, so that's a master's, PhD, or JD, at any point between the onset of the fall term of 2021, so right now, and the state application deadline period. So fall 2021 through February 2022. The graduate degree will be awarded through an accredited institution of higher education in the United States or U.S. territories, and the student has an interest in ocean, coastal, and Great Lakes resources and the national policy decisions affecting those resources. So you must fall into all three of those categories in order to be eligible for this program. Application submission is through an application to the state Sea Grant program in the state in which a student is earning their degree. If there is no Sea Grant program in the state in which you are getting a degree, you should reach out to the national program managers and we will assign you a state to apply to. So again, we get this question all the time. It's not the state in which you are a resident. It's not the state in which you grew up. It's the state in which you are earning your degree. So if you still maintain a residence at your childhood home, but you're going to school in a different state, you go with the state in which you were in school. So here's some criteria that affect eligibility. It's a one-year fellowship that will take place in the National Capital Region, or the DMV. Applicants must be prepared to relocate to this region. Applicants must be able to pass a federal security background check. This includes questions on your arrest record, drug use, and possible review of social media presence. So as you're applying to this program, start to think about those parts of your life. Prior contact or arrangement made with possible host offices before the start of your placement week will be cause for immediate disqualification from the process. Applicants that have been accepted as a national finalist and or become fellows are not eligible to apply again without the written permission of the National Fellowship Manager, which will only be granted in response to exceptional life events. So a little bit of detail, this program does accept foreign nationals. Foreign nationals are eligible for both the executive and legislative cohort. Non-US citizens are responsible for obtaining the appropriate visas to allow you to stay and work in the DMV. Some of the most common ones that we see are student F1 visas. If you're a student, you stay on your F1 visa. If you've graduated, a lot of our students get optical practical training extensions or OPTs. The national office can give you some advice, but we don't know much about this process. We can only sort of support you and try and find the answers to questions. The fellowship is open to all eligible students, regardless of nationality, and however, a significant number of our participating federal host offices are unable to accept foreign nationals as fellows. So this just means that some of those positions you might not actually be able to take, but there's still plenty of opportunities for you in this program as a foreign national. All right, so what goes into the application package? This is a chunky bit, so stick with us. We're going to go through each bit of this. We're going to break it down into a little bit more detail about what goes into this. And then also after that, we'll talk about how we grade or score everything. So first, I'm going to talk about the project narrative. So slides that are highlighted in orange, that's going to be submitted by you. The one that comes in blue, that's going to be submitted by your state Sea Grant program. Quickly, you're going to need a CV, a personal education and career development response. You're going to need to talk about your relevant course and future year plans. You're going to need some letters of recommendations, your transcripts, and then if applicable, your out-of-state letter. All right, up first, we have the curriculum vitae or CV. This is not to exceed 2 pages. So if you submit something with 3 pages, you may either get rejected or we block it out. So do pay attention to that page limit. You should not include personal contact information or web links to external resources, such as LinkedIn, articles, or blogs. If these are included, we will redact those as well. Up next is the second part, which is the main part of the application. This is the personal education and career development responses. The student should in this section, the student should emphasize their ability and expectations of the fellowship and experience in terms of their career development. Each section and subsequent subsection should be answered separately unless otherwise noted. The entire personal education and career development section should not exceed 1,500 words. We've included some suggested word counts with each subsection below. As a side note, section headers will count as part of the overall word count. The student should not include personal contact information or web links to external resources. Again, these will be redacted out of this section. So section 1 of the personal education and career goal responses is what we're calling the icebreaker. The suggested word count for this section is 25 words. You're going to have 2 questions to answer. The first one we suggest is 20 words. The student or you should use 1 sentence to describe themselves. And then the second question is 5 words maximum. You should list 5 adjectives that someone with a close personal connection, such as a coworker or supervisor, would use to describe you. Section 2 of the personal education and career development responses is we're calling the career path and objectives. This is the one section that could be completed as 1 continuous statement or as 3 separate responses. The suggested word count for this whole section is about 700 words. So the 3 questions. The first one, the student should discuss any experiences, research or otherwise, that support or relate to the mission of the National Sea Grant College Program or the State Sea Grant Program. The student does not have to have had a direct connection with Sea Grant, just a stated interest and commitment to the mission. The student should emphasize, if relevant, any experience with extending and distilling science for non-scientific audiences. The second question, the student should discuss their interest in the Knauss Fellowship with a specific focus on how the Knauss Fellowship supports the student's career path. The student should focus on how the Knauss program would further support their development as a professional. The third question, the student should discuss the transferable skills or skills that can be applied across a variety of disciplines that they would bring to the Knauss Fellowship. In this response, students should highlight experiences from their personal, professional, and academic background. So the third section in the personal education and career development responses, again, the suggested word count is 700, but we do ask that you respond to these separately. The first, SEGRET values the principles of equity, diversity, inclusion, justice, and accessibility. The student should discuss 1, how they have collaborated or engaged with diverse community members and/or interested partners, and/or 2, how they would be an ambassador for these principles throughout the Knauss program. So note there's that and/or between 1 or 2, so you don't have to speak to both, but at least speak to 1. The second question, the student should discuss a situation in which they overcame a challenge, for example, within a community or institution, personally or professionally, specifically as it relates to how they took a leadership role. The student should also consider including a reflection on what they learned from this experience. All right, so moving on to the third section of the application package, the relevant coursework and future year plans. This section is not to exceed 1 page, single-spaced. In this section, the student should discuss any relevant coursework and their future year activities. Relevant coursework being defined as the student may discuss any completed or in progress classes that they deem relevant to their success in the Knauss Fellowship program. And then future year activities, the student should include a listing of classes and/or plans for spring 2022, summer 2022, and fall 2022. All right, the fourth section, the letters of recommendation. You are going to be asked to get 2 letters of recommendation from individuals who have worked with you, including at least 1 from a faculty member with knowledge of your academic and research, when applicable, performance. The letters should not exceed 2 pages, single-spaced each. So 1 letter is 2 pages, the other letter is 2 pages. These letters should discuss the following attributes of the student: self-motivation, response to setbacks, skills and involvement in teamwork, collaborative leadership skills, willingness to learn a new skill or topic, academic and performance potential. Additionally, the letters should speak to anything else the review panel should know about the strengths that the student will bring to the fellowship. Again, the letters should not include personal contact information or web links to external resources. They will be redacted. Any letters beyond the 2 pages of letters of recommendation and the eligible SEGRET director's letter will be disregarded by the selection panel. Note, letters of endorsement from members of Congress, friends, or relatives will not be accepted. All right, the last section. Please provide us with clear digital or scanned copies of all undergraduate and graduate transcripts. We do accept unofficial transcripts for this program. And then last, for those applicants who are coming from a state that does not have a SEGRET program, you will need to include your out-of-state letter that the national office, the program manager, will provide you that states we have referred you to this program. All right, and then the last piece, this one you all students do not actually write, but you will contribute to. It's the director's letter, a signed letter of recommendation from the state SEGRET director, which is built from an interview with the applicant. As part of that interview and subsequent letter, the director shall demonstrate why the student is a good fit for the Knauss program, highlight the skills the student emphasizes in the interview, explain any gaps in the CV or personal education and career development responses, or anything that the student feels they were unable to include in the application that they feel is important for the review panel to know. And finally, advocate for why this student belongs in the Knauss program. This letter will not exceed 2 pages single-spaced. All right, so that is what goes into the application package. I'm going to talk about how we're going to look at that, how we're going to review your pieces of information. Really high level, you can tell that the evaluation criteria, there's 3 of them: relevant experience, recommendations or endorsements, and overall application cohesion. Within your relevant experiences, you have 3 components that generally contribute to that: your CV, your personal education and career development responses, and then your relevant coursework and future year plans. And you can tell from the point breakdown, that is the big chunky part of the application package. That's where the majority of your points are coming from. Then the recommendations and endorsements, that has 2 components: your letters of recommendation and then your director's letter. And then your overall application cohesion looks at the package as a whole. So that's your CV, personal and career development responses, coursework, letters of recommendation, the director's letter. So that's just everything in a nice tight package. And I'm going to now break this down into each section so you know how to and what we're looking for in each of those sections. So again, the big chunky section, relevant experiences. This is 75 points total. What we're overall looking for is that your relevant experiences related to diversity of education, extracurricular activities, and interpersonal, written, and oral communication skills, and other applicable competencies. For the Knauss Fellowship Program, this includes the curriculum vitae, personal education and career development responses, and relevant coursework and future year plans, which will be reviewed as follows. So the CV is worth 10 points. You'll see each of these has a point scale. I'm not going to talk about each point scale because it gets a little long and wordy, so stick with me. The CV is worth 10 points. How we're going to look at this: the student has employment, volunteer, or extracurricular activities in academic, applied, research, administration, outreach, or policy positions. The education experience, personal and professional, in the student's areas of expertise are appropriate to their career stage. The student demonstrates academic, professional, or personal experiences that are relevant and applicable to serving the American people. And finally, the student's experience show prior leadership roles relevant to their career stage. For example, student government, faculty committees, advisory committees, professional societies, community initiatives, etc. So the personal education and career development responses, how is this broken down? Section 1, the icebreaker, is worth 5 points. How are we going to review that? The student demonstrates creative thinking and a willingness to think outside of the box. Section 2, your career path and objectives. This is worth 25 total points. How are we reviewing this? The career path and objectives are specific, direct, and concise while discussing what the student would bring to and gain from the Knauss Fellowship. The student clearly articulates their career or professional goals. The career path and objectives demonstrates the student's diverse personal and professional background. The student demonstrates creative thinking, analytical skills, and/or indicates their capacity and willingness to make connections between science and broader economic, social, and political issues. The student demonstrates their ability to convey scientific knowledge in broader, non-scientific contexts. And finally, the career path and objectives align with the broader mission of the Sea Grant program and NOAA. So, third section of the personal education and career relevant responses, your career path and experience, 25 points. This will be reviewed as follows. The student has shown an interest in working with diverse collaborators, community members, and/or interested partners. The student demonstrates an interest in or commitment to the Sea Grant values of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and accessibility. The student's experience demonstrates a commitment to apply expertise to serve science and society. The student demonstrates creativity and willingness to navigate a challenging situation. And finally, the student demonstrates leadership and problem-solving initiative. All right, the third section, relevant coursework and future year plans. This is worth 10 points. The student has employment, volunteer, or extracurricular activities in academic, applied, research, administration, outreach, or policy positions. The education and experience, personal or professional, in the student's area of expertise are appropriate to career stage. The student demonstrates work-life experiences that are relevant and applicable to serving the American people. And you can demonstrate some leadership roles relevant to your career stage. Your recommendations and/or endorsements of the students. This whole section is worth 15 points. What we're looking for is that the Knauss Fellowship Program, the endorsements and content of the letter from the student's Sea Grant director, academic reference, and the second letter of recommendation are reviewed as follows. So your 2 letters of recommendation are worth 5 points. What we're looking for, the letter writers demonstrate knowledge of the student and their ability. The letter writers speak to the leadership potential, confidence, maturity, and self-direction of the student. The letter writers provide evidence of the student's willingness and flexibility to tackle issues beyond their area of expertise and openness and capacity to expand experiences. And finally, the letter writer provides evidence of the student's ability to convey scientific knowledge in broader, non-scientific contexts. Your director's letter, that's worth 10 points. So again, this is the letter based off of your interview. The 3 review criteria, the director's letter demonstrates how the student fits with the Knauss program, including any discussion of why the student belongs in the Knauss program, highlights the skills, academic, professional, or personal, that the student would bring to the Knauss program, and elaborates on the information not specifically addressed by the student in their application package. And then finally, the third review criteria are overall application cohesion. This is worth 10 points. The application materials complement each other. The student brings a diverse perspective to the program. The application materials provide a clear picture of what the student would gain from receiving the Knauss Fellowship. The application materials provide a clear picture of what the student would bring to the Knauss Fellowship. All right, so just there's some other, if you notice, there are some other parts of the application package that we have not talked about. Your transcripts. While we require these, we do not include this in our review criteria. The out-of-state letter, again, we require this, but it's not part of our review criteria. Before I wrap up, I just wanted to give a couple tips for applying to the program. Reach out to the appropriate Sea Grant program early. You're watching this webinar now, reach out now. Ask them for tips on the application process and to be connected to any alumni that may be willing to answer your questions. Reread your application, including the requirements and application materials. Prep your letter writers. Tell them about the opportunity. Give them time to provide meaningful comment about you. Start early, like collecting all of the pieces can take time. Stay true to yourself. This is your application. Let your character and goal be the focus. And I'm going to say it again, proofread your materials. Those mistakes are blaring when we start reviewing them. And again, this is how you can reach us. Please feel free to reach out at any time. Visit our website to learn more. A version of these slides will be posted for folks to review. Please email us, call us if you have any questions. And thank you for listening. I also want to thank both of our interpreters. It was very, very helpful.